With one of the most bizarre and surreal plots of all time, Investigation lives up to this through and through. A newly promoted police inspector, menacingly named Il Dottore, opens the film by killing his mistress and covering up his part in the crime. Placing himself into the midst of the investigation, he steers his subordinates on a series of other subjects, including a woman's gay husband and a young student radical leftist. In a bizarre twist, he even recruits an innocent old man to be his unwitting accomplice, buying him a blue tie that he uses to place himself at the scene. As his personal neurosis is becoming more and more apparent to the audience, he tries to get himself accused, directly leaving evidence that pointed to him behind. All of this in a supreme show of belief in the role of authority. The old man who has conspired to accuse him does not, refusing to believe a person of stature would have done this, again perpetuating that belief in his role of authority above all else and all others. He eventually confesses to a mafia-esque gathering of his bosses at his sleek home, but they refuse to believe him. Then, as this chaotic interrogation sequence is revealed to have been a dream, the commissioners arrive in reality, and we've closed before we see the end of this real scene. The film closes with a quote from Franz Kafka. The character himself is what drives the truly bizarre nature of this film. Gianmaria Volonté, in playing him, delivers a masterclass on Italian crazy, fascist crazy, and crazy crazy, all at once. His look plays into the fascistic themes found within his character, appearing in slick Italian suits daily before busting into sweaty rages of speeches and arguments. Moustached, crazy eyes, and deeply intense, you can see and feel the ideas that he represents throughout the movie. Two episodes highlight this best. First, his wild-eyed speech to the police union at the beginning, his first real speech and an insight into a deeper philosophy that reveals his passion for order as an ideal above all. In a foreshadowing of his crushing of the student protest later, he pledges to clean the city up, and for good. As I will discuss later, this is especially harrowing given the context the film was made in. That means he would be instantly recognizable to many Italians. Second, there is the interrogation of those very radicals, and in particular that of their de facto leader. The young man and resident of the block where his mistress lived is clearly everything he despises most: a sexual rival, a young radical, a student. The brutal interrogation scenes clearly show the depth of his twisted character because of its unusual and intense nature compared to even the rest of the enthusiastic police. He holds the cards, all of them. He's in control of the evidence and the suspects in the investigation, and he runs into the unknown, throwing the interrogation to chaos purely for the thrill of it. A few key characters to remember in this film. First, the young radical. Appearing as the leader of the student movement, he's despised by Il Dottore almost as much for this as for his love of the slain woman. Then there's the victim, the mistress of the police chief. She appears briefly at the start and then continually through the film in small interludes. However, she quickly escapes the confines of a crime, and she remains a background character for the most part, a canvas for his ideas and his craziness. Then there are his underlings. As well as the underlings, there's the police chiefs and the general police staff. The often enthusiastic underlings are the perfect portrayal of the dysfunction in the force, and the bosses are the perfect representation of the leadership that has allowed him to flourish. The historical context of this film is what makes its bizarre style so exciting. A deep and rich theme of Italian history, this period was in reality marked by corruption, crackdowns, and even assassination. Indeed, the Criterion Collection has an excellent article on the film that argued the film appears psychotic and caricatural in large part because the Italian state was so itself, as it sought neither to pacify dissent nor mask its power. In short, the bizarre nature of the film, from the characters to the almost Scooby-Doo-esque soundtrack, works because for many the chaos depicted in it was reality. The state was seen like this by many. Indeed, that context goes beyond the historical, right to that of the director himself. Elio Petri began his career with films mostly within the system, with a clearly defined and better funded scene of Italian art cinema. Investigation is the first entry of his into to the openly political space. It actually developed a trilogy of openly political films for Petri, with 2 more following this, including a labour struggle drama called The Working Class Goes to Heaven, and a wild allegorical tale named Property is No Longer Theft. He was born in Rome and joined the Italian Youth Communist Party, but left after the brutal crushing of the Hungarian uprisings of 1956, reflecting the struggles of many with Marxism, particularly within the leftist movement within which he was a part at the time. Down to the plot itself, his real interests are clear, with Petri participating in a series of political documentary films in 1970. The same year, Investigation, this film, won 2 awards at Cannes. These investigated the unresolved death of anarchist Giuseppe Pinelli, who died in police custody after falling out the 4th floor window of the Milan police station on the 15th of December 1969. Even the film's release seems part of the story at the time, with real fears from Petri and others that it would be censored, given the significant repression of left-wing groups after the massacre of Piazza Fontana. Despite a moment when senior police officers apparently rushed en masse to report it after its first showing in Milan, it was successfully released and well received by many. Investigation is distinctive, especially because of its unique style. That background is especially important in this style, particularly with the substance of investigation being so heavily political. A style that is hard to pin down in many ways. Petri was a common collaborator with neorealist director Giuseppe De Santis, in a wide variety of roles from a researcher to assistant director and co-writer. Much of the humour of Investigation is its satirical overplay of the police chief, but ultimately his neorealistic tendencies shine through. Indeed, Port Magazine's excellent piece Remembering Petri sums up the film best, stating that as a film, Investigation represents pretty much who Petri was, his essence as a filmmaker. It is fair to describe it as perhaps his seminal work, and for critical acclaim internationally, it certainly was. The tough realism combined with surreal eccentricities like the unusual soundtrack. Since I've discussed that music so much, I thought I should give a little insight into the music of Investigation, or rather, the frequent boing sounds that haunt the movie. The original score, created by Ennio Morricone, acts as a sort of device for comedy, interspersing drama with its odd sounds to bring comic relief. Of course, it still plays into the tenser moments of the story when needed, but its primary purpose and joy in the movie is its comedic timing. For some fun facts about Investigation, a remake of the film was planned to discuss at various points, and was seriously picking up steam in the 90s when it was picked up by Jodie Foster's production company. In an interesting throwback to Network, Sidney Lumet was actually attached to direct, but the film never made it beyond pre-production. So, Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion is perhaps the weirdest film I've ever seen, and I'd have to say that's a compliment. It's bizarre, unusually famed, and yet piercingly real. As an insight into the Italy of the day, it is invaluable, and as a story around filmmaking itself and the drama associated with it, it's fascinating. As a film, it's undeniably a must watch.